In this video, I'll be showing you one of the most technically impressive AI models that is on the market right now. It's entirely free, can be ran on your computer or through limited token use, and is indiscernible from reality. From realistic photos, this thing makes indiscernible. Like, you cannot tell the difference whatsoever, unless you've really got a keen eye for AI distortions, and you know exactly where they mess up. Beforehand, it was almost impossible to run these things because of just the sheer amount of computational load, but luckily there is a turbo equivalent, which is more reasonable to actually be able to run it, and is extremely applicable to all these different types of industries. If you wanted to just get a compositional shot to show clientele of what an image might look like, or if you wanted to see what you look like possibly in a different type of clothing, all of these things. Tons of applications across the board. I'll let your imagination play with them. But in this video, I'm going to be going through and adding it to our label library, which is a massive data set that is entirely free. It's a Google Doc that is, when you download it, it's entirely yours to do whatever you want with. It is basically a bunch of keywords or prompts or sentences, in this case, and their corresponding effect as it relates to that model, allowing you to see the totality of all of these changes and understand how the model's reacting based on all those results, as well as just being a really good data set for, oh, I just kind of like the way that it looks in that image. I'm going to take that little phrase and plop it into my prompts, and now you're off to the races. That's the idea, at least with this label library. But unlike the previous additions to the label library, they were all based on a model, or like a hive mind, a soul bond of Illustrious, which is a massive data set of model that is really tuned with AI and keywords. Specific small words like one, no space, girl, or tomboy, or gara, or tall, or masculine, whatever. So things like that, singular words that kind of describe a whole thing. So if you were to describe a kid under an orchard tree, you would basically say, tree, boy laying down, apples, green, and you'd explain the color variations to it. So you try to get as much information as possible in the smallest amount of words used, and not try to do sentence structure. You're just trying to go with keywords. So just a bunch of keywords, you describing things like apple, tree, laying down, that, etc. But this one, as we're about to see, which by the way is Z-Image, specifically Z-Image Base, which is the Megamind model and not the Turbo model. I wanted to show you guys the best of the best, hence the term Label Library Hall of Fame. So I wanted to show you guys the best of the best if I'm able to do it. Sometimes I'm not, my PC is okay. But what's important to understand about this model, and as you guys can see, I tried to write this down to kind of alleviate some of it, but what's really important to understand about this model is, unlike Illustrious, it's built on sentence structure. All that really means, you know, the kid laying under an orchard tree, you wouldn't say keywords basically like apple, green tree, boy laying down, things like that. You would say a boy laying under an orchard tree, which some people like more, but also because there's so much sentence structure, I find it also can get the AI to be lost in some cases. There's different strengths to different things, but alas, that's what's really important to understand here. But you can still kind of get away with keywords. You just kind of gotta it's kind of a weird thing. Basically, because 90% of us are so used to actual keywords at this point, I try to lean it in that direction. But if you prefer sentence structure, you can absolutely still take everything that we show here, just add a couple more thes, is, and ands, and you'll be fine. But one thing important to know, because I use the base model, I wasn't able to actually use control nets. Perhaps there's a way to do it, but I didn't really rip my hair out to figure it out. All I did was just lower the control strength of our base image, which is this badass samurai lady. And yeah, we're gonna go ahead and run through everything. And this is basically the Z image. If you see anything that catches your eye, it's a simple download to go to our school community. You sign up, it's entirely free. You go into the school section, classroom section, you go into the label library, you scroll all the way down, and this will always be the newest up-to-date thing. And yes, you can just download it and it's yours forever, and check back a couple times to see if we added another model and things like that. But alas, without further ado, let us get into it. All right, so real quick, as you guys can see, this all consists of me trying to do my best thing to describe what I just described, which is, instead of Illustrious-based models that go off of keywords, Z-Image goes off of sentence structure. So it's beneficial to do sentence structure. Now, that doesn't mean it will always understand the sentence perfectly, which is why keywords is sometimes nicer, because you can immediately understand what it's confused by, because it's not showing up or it's not triggering. Whereas sentence structure, you have to write a whole ass sentence just to be able to see whether it kind of understands it, and it could be 3 components of the sentence. Anyways, once again, if this is your first time seeing the label library, the goal is to basically constrain the model as much as possible so you can see the way it deviates, so you can actually learn what the model is doing in each instance. We're not trying to create the coolest reference images. We're trying to see how the model moves so that you can understand, oh, that's what that does. Got it. Now I understand how the model functions as a whole. And yeah, there's various things at the very bottom that will show you how this model can really flex in a bunch of different directions. And this one does a great job at it. Anyways, so this is our reference, by the way, and it looks insanely realistic. I chose this one. I always like to have a theme just so we stay on some sort of thing to make sure we can see when it deviates. And as you can see, she is, of course, a female samurai. That is the kind of control test that I have. Female samurai standing, head and shoulders portrait shot, natural gray studio lighting. Once again, you'll notice that I'm speaking in more sentence structure and less locked into as much information as possible within a keyword. So yeah, and I just chose samurai because usually you're able to see intricate detail within the armor, the cloth, the face, all those things. So it just kind of allowed for a lot of data and to be able to understand when something moves, right? Cool. All right, so we've segmented things a little bit weirder here because I'm trying to optimize our quip system even more. Let's get into quality metrics. We're going to burn through some of these, but yes, high fidelity, things like this. Basically, this model is perfectly tuned to photorealistic or photography-based photos or imagery, right? So that's something that's evident here, but as you can see, it's still just kind of okay with weirder things like professional digital render. This is kind of changing the style to be more of a digital style, but still very, very cool. And then we have atmospheric depth, which you can see creates a sense of 3D in the background. So we kind of took that and kind of created a more 3D / weird art style, but it might also just because we haven't nailed down a style yet. I like to do that when we start moving in past style so that we can pick one from the best. Anyways, and now you can see that we're on to detailed. So again, I broke this up into quality, detailed, and artistic mediums. So now we're on to detailed things that move the needle as far as detail. And oh my God, does that look crazy? Same thing with intricate embroidery. You can kind of see here where it kind of gets way more complex, whereas all of these kind of have very simplistic cloth physics. These ones have beautiful designs and everything is really, really nice. Even this looks way more complicated, but it didn't take away from the face structure or anything like that. So again, it's really cool how this does these kind of soft changes. Same thing with this one where you added sharp focus, kind of changes the whole pensiveness of the entire image. It's kind of cool that you can play around with something super broad, like sharp focused edge, and it kind of bleeds into every other effect within the model where she's standing differently, she's more serious, all of these fun things. And of course, artistic medium is kind of what we started to blend because there were some things that were existing in style that were kind of bloating it and also unnecessary. So I moved some of them which kind of fit the artistic medium more instead of a style. It's kind of the medium in which they're done in, which is painting, pencil art, digital art. Those are all kind of the mediums, not necessarily styles like Ghibli or pixel art, things like that. Hopefully that makes sense. But one that stood out to me in a big way was this analog art style. This one gave it just the right amount of painted, and I just really liked the way that this came out. Super, super pretty. Even things like 8-bit really, really nailed it. And then of course, photorealistic, you can see the one thing that differentiates that is the fact that they've added depth of field, which is what this blurring is, kind of camera blur and all these kind of things, different types of lighting, shadows, all that stuff. But anyways, that is quality. That is the quality defining metric. So if you're gonna make a prompt, you'd probably use some of these, the ones that you found the most interesting. And then we have, of course, everyone's favorite, the unique aesthetic, the kind of soul of the of the art you're making. Again, we have something like abstract art, which starts to get really, really weird, which I like, of course. And then we have raw photo, something a little more neutral. And then we have other things that I'm surprised it did so well with, like digital speed painting. Again, this is playing around to see if it kind of knows these things, and it seems like it does, because it does, the speed painting aspect makes it so that it's not perfectly painted. There's some slight flaws, some slight blotchiness, it's not perfectly crisp. And I think it's funny that you can use words like that to kind of give it more of a realistic painted style instead of it looking kind of uncanny valley. And of course, Ghibli is actually doing pretty well. It's not perfect, of course. This is the only one that kind of does have something off basically with it for me a little bit, but not bad. Again, the one thing that it's not perfect in is when it starts to get into drawn art styles. Painting it does really well with, but not hitching, which is like a super, black and white anime drawn type of look. Same thing with like anime style, things like that. It doesn't really do well at all because it's not trained on that. Everything has a strong suit, and very rarely do you find one that's like perfect in everything. And if it is, it usually costs a lot of money, all that stuff, and it's not perfect at either of them. Anyways, of course, we are going to move past that. Now we are on to color. So of course, we can add the same thing, pastel palette. These will add more saturation, bright colors. Then we have like teal and orange grading colors. We have a little bit of orange here, and we have this beautiful blue, things like that. And of course, it naturally defaults to realistic, hence why most of these are like that. Ethereal pastels with dream core. These are all words that I like backed to make sure that AI or the model understands to some extent by like basically putting a bunch of data into other AIs to help me kind of extract what was usable. And apparently these are words, so if they look abnormal to you, they look abnormal to me, but they were trained on it. So, and then we have lighting, of course, which is like volumetric lighting, which looks beautiful. There's also a global illumination, which is a lot more softer. Again, lighting is with this model, I feel like it was a lot more subtle. And things like that should work, like dodge rays, I found didn't. So there were things that I heard people continue to use while using this, and I just never seen it move the needle once. So again, it's always funny that like in my experiment and actually testing, the things that are most commonly used don't work. So yeah, I guess it's just a testament to testing. And I tried to make them work. I tried increasing prompt strength, all that stuff. I just don't see like when you use certain keywords, it does move the needle. So I assume it doesn't work, but possibly it needs like 3 other keywords to detonate. But are you going to map out 3 different types of keywords to detonate it? Probably not. Then we have weird stuff like mood and tone, which I thought I'd add. So you can even get really weird with intense, intense fiery aura, intense, hatred, intense peace, so anything. It's kind of weird, intense peace. I wonder what that would look like. But you can also just have fun with it and go intense eldritch energy if you wanted, intense magical energy, intense whatever. So intense coupled with any kind of mood or thing tends to be an empowering word. And then there's weird words like low-key lighting. This one, I don't know. I was debating whether just chucking it because I don't know. In hindsight, low-key lighting, I don't know what that would look like. So anyways, I might burn that one before I upload. I'm not sure. But and then there's things like this that were like serene atmosphere, which play a little bit less with the overall thing, but more her expression I found. But I'll be honest, this model, unlike all the other models we have, is a super soft hand. Like, it does not move drastically. Like sometimes when you say like super bright lighting or something like that, it will do it, and other times it will do it like lightly. Like I think the whole point of this model is supposed to be as realistic as possible. So like all of its references for really bright aren't really that bright. They're kind of within a range of realism or like groundedness, I suppose. Anywho, of course, now we're on to image composition, which is consists of the shot that you're taking. And again, this is really relevant to this particular model because it's very much based on photo terms and photorealism. So, of course, shot is really important, composition, and then camera effects. This is weird because I try to give you guys some sort of like some blocks, but a lot of these can be interweaved. This is kind of the nature of prompting, but at the same time, it's not conducive to learning to just be like, everything is an option and everything can happen and what's happening, basically. So to understand chunks of it will help you eventually be able to be like, oh, then I can mix and mash all these things. Alas, the classic things like heads and shoulder portrait nails everything. We have macro photography shot, which I think it did a really good job. It zoomed in quite a bit from the normal portrait shot, which is nice. We have this one full-length body shot. Again, fantastic. It's also really weird. There's some weirdness here where it's a gigantic sword and it doesn't really make sense proportional-wise, even if it was pointing at the camera. But, can't win them all. Then we have a wide angle shot, which it actually is really well. Again, this is something that you usually see weird distortions, like the building, it curves way too much, but no, this actually looks pretty believable. We have bird's eye view shot, which is, it got weird. It's kind of interesting how much bird's eye view completely shifted it. So I didn't change the fact that it was a female samurai, the fact that any of this is a thing. What it did do is be like, oh, okay, well, I'll take the female samurai part, I'll do all that stuff, and I'll just like literally put a bird's eye view, which normally just means like from the top. It doesn't mean a shot that's literally filmed from a bird. It's so high up. It's so high up. She might be right there, that little speck, I don't know, somewhere in there, but it's interesting to know how much bird's eye view played a part. Maybe it's because we increased the prompt weight so much. So maybe if you decrease the prompt weight, it would be less intense. So, but alas. Then we have a Dutch angle, which basically is a tilted angle shot. I wish it was called something else, but yeah. We have a profile silhouette shot. It nails that perfectly. Set design photography. This is kind of really relevant. I kind of wanted to put more of these in there because it kind of shows you the scope of what this can be used for. So it's not just like, hey, I want to make a realistic person, which, implications for that, whatever. kind of a lot. But with this, it's more of like, oh, I can use this for my business, or I can use this for like, you know, decorating or like showing some sort of thing. And if you know anything about what we know on this channel, where you can use line art and various things like that to kind of like bake in a composition, you can take your own environment, bake in the lines, and then do whatever changes you want, and it can basically have a much better chance of keeping the overall structure or whatever you're taking a picture of. And then adding those nice little tweaks or additions to whatever you're adding there, right? Direct contact with eyes, all that stuff. Again, these are all camera shots. At the very end there, I was like, okay, here's some like camera effects that you can have fun with, just to keep your brain kind of expanding into all of these weird ways. And now we are on to the thing that I will condense drastically, which is primary subject, which can consist of 1,000 variables. So this is where I started to kind of push your brain in different directions of like, oh, you can do this, and oh, this is kind of fun, something cool you could set up as a composition, so to speak, or a subject action and things like that. Anyways, so same thing with this one. This one's a lot more lenient. You can say like young woman, you can say old grizzled man. You don't have to say weird things with like, you know, having to restrict keywords to exactly what was labeled when they were labeling stuff. A little more free flowing. Again, the old grizzled man, it nailed. The what do you call it? The old woman, it nailed. This is one of the few times where you could kind of pick up some sort of weird AI weirdness. So like you can see within the neck rolls, they're kind of, at least to me, they don't like seem like they make sense. Same thing with this guy's forehead. Everything makes sense, and then there's just kind of this like steep line here where these like wrinkles don't really add up. But anyways, these are like nitpicks, and only if you were like really constantly looking at AI stuff, you'd be able to pick up on. And also, even for me, who is doing that constantly, I'm not always doing that. So like, if I seen this when I was scrolling through ads or whatever, and I seen that, I wouldn't think anything of it, right? My brain's not in like, this is AI, how do I find it mode all the time, right? And then you can see some stuff that it doesn't do perfectly, like the cyber stuff. It tries to do like realistic, but then it kind of clashes, and to me, I feel like this is very odd looking. It just doesn't look really believable. Same thing with this. Again, when you start pushing it into environments that it's not really comfortable with, like a demonic young boy with the horns. And I by the way, at this point, I started letting the AI, I think, play with any store's style it wanted. Because I just want kind of, at this point, it's kind of, I think, helpful to start seeing how the AI reacts to anything and to kind of see different variants. If it was all samurai, I feel like it would get boring also, just visually looking through it. But at last, this one, it does okay. Again, it still doesn't look like it's the AI's strong suit. This one surprised me though. This art style, it actually nailed really well, which we've seen beforehand. It's kind of like a painted art style. Reminds me very much of Dragon Age, weirdly enough. Now with the actions, as we've seen before, we get the pointing towards people, all that stuff, casting a spell or channeling magical energy from the palm. Again, these are all like the same words that we used. So these are the same things we're used to. I just basically took all the prompts I used and basically converted them into the equivalent of sentence structure that would work for this type of thing. So that's kind of the same. Again, amazing, exploding, radiant internal energy. Kind of a lot, but okay. But yeah, very cool. Again, the sitting meditated Zen pose, it did really well. The fingers are all accounted for. This model has very little distortion, but we are also using the full version. The one that I would highly suggest you guys use is the turbo version, which by the way is at the top. It's probably right below the download link for the full version, which is what was showcased. But the turbo version is much more realistic, much more fast. So I will say, this took an ungodly amount of time. I would highly advise not using the Ultra version unless you're on like a really good graphics card. And once again, the one that I always find is kind of so-so is the studying, like them reading a book. Always kind of looks kind of off. This one, they do great. The hands look great. Everything looks great. The only thing that's a little weird is the proportion with the arm here doesn't really add up. It's kind of getting distorted by the fact that it's cropped in the way that it is. And finally, we have detailed characteristics. I think we also have beautifying characteristics. Yeah, we do. But detailed characteristics is one I actually put like something I just wanted to show you guys. So this is where the model definitely differs. I think at this point, we've kind of glazed the model quite a bit. It's people like, oh my God, it's so great. Issue you're going to have with this model, unlike Illustrious, which is great for, think of how the power of a keyword or a label. Like a label is fantastic because it can like summarize so much context. You can say a word like tomboy and immediately takes like short hair, boyish features, maybe a little bit messy, wears, long johns, whatever the fuck. And it'll immediately tell you that, right? Boom. Which is fantastic if you're trying to nail like a trope. But in this model, it doesn't work that way. It doesn't really nail any of those things. So what you need to do instead is you need to explain, and this is where it kind of falls apart. You need to explain all of the characteristics that encompass that trope. So you would need to go into, okay, if you wanted to get like One that's actually here is Gara. So Gara basically is a really tan lady, Japanese, all these things. Anyways, but you need to describe blonde hair, really tan skin, heavy makeup, certain whatever, right? So you need to go in and explain all those things. And that's easier for some things and harder for others. And this is what I want to show you guys with this one right here, which is it never really nailed the tomboy aesthetic ever. Even when I tried to go through and give it various traits, it just never really got it. Whereas it's something that easily can be done with Illustrious or any of these base models that are good with keywords. So this has like a lot of strengths because you can just like ramble off like, girl sitting underneath a tree eating an apple and has a katana by her hip or whatever. And you can just kind of rattle off that and the AI will composite that. But the issue is when you're trying to do like something like that, like a particular kind of like makeup structure or like a trope or like anything like that. There are some things like female samurai, it understands because samurai is such a heavy baked in term to like a lot of reference points. But alas, yeah, we have stuff like extremely detailed face, skin pores, all that stuff. It shows all the nasty pores, all that stuff. We have goth. This is my attempt. High contrast gothic aesthetic. It does okay. It kind of does the Japanese goth angle, alas. Same thing, high cheekbones, sharp features, does a really good job with that. Although it starts to look kind of too soft, or it starts looking a little AI generated, I think, in my opinion. So when you do add those beautifying metrics, it sometimes make it look a little unrealistic, I guess. And that kind of triggers something, at least in me, that I'm like, that's a little sussy. I'm not sure if I believe that that's actually a thing, right? Don't move my thing. So I don't know if I need to blur this. There's nothing shown, and this is quite the artistic rendering of that. But I just thought I would show. One of the things that I always like to add is like muscular structure, because I think it's a really good thing to like see how the AI actually functions, and with lighting and the dynamic nature of skin, having like 1,000 different types of light bloom. And if you just want to like rip your hair out, the amount of color variation within our skin is insane. Anyways. But basically, I want to show you guys an aesthetic build. So I went with aesthetic build, muscular physique, and it came out with this. But it's funny because aesthetic does, everything bleeds into everything. So like an aesthetic build also bleeds into the overall composition of this, where it's a very stylized aesthetic shot of a person like, I don't know what's happening, but it looks great. It looks fantastic. But yes, also, if we just jump over to the right here, we have the intricate braids, which again look fantastic. Just a mixture of like rope and then hair. Dope as hell. I think it's really cool. Anyways, but yes, I thought I'd mention that. I don't think it's too much, and yeah, but I will say a lot of skin happening. All right, anyways, let's move on. This one, I'll be honest, kind of a mess up. Dynamic, cascading hair in motion. I guess the in motion it nails. I just kind of wanted it to be more falling, and it kind of just looks like, you know, static. Or like wind coming up from the bottom. Anyways, scuffed and dented plate armor with rust patina. I can't say that. But yeah, it looks okay. It does a decent job. Again, you can definitely start to see when it stops becoming like believable. I think it's because it starts veering away from its natural photorealism, and it starts veering into kind of like 3D modeling of creating like, you know, rust on images and stuff like that it probably doesn't have any reference point for outside of 3D models and stuff like that. And then we have this one, which is well-defined abs, which is, again, a little out of place as far as like it doesn't merge it in a great way. Kind of looks a little whatever, she's jacked. Anyways, but there was one I want to show you here. Again, expressions it nails, by the way. It nails like in some of the best ways. It does great. So good. All of these are super believable, especially the happy one. Crazy. All of these look super realistic to me, at least. I couldn't tell. Blushing, kind of not great. Kind of bit shit, if I'm honest. But anyways, what was the one I wanted to show you? Is it here? Glasses. Yes, it's this one. So this one I wanted to show you. This one doesn't do great. It's wide hips, narrow waist. These hips ain't wide to me, son. Anyways, I might be but I also will say this is also not realistic. So like it does weird stuff here where like it should continue to have rib bones, but instead it just gets really meaty in weird ways. So this is one that I do find it kind of does drop the ball as far as like the structure of that. And I noticed that within the abs as well. Like it just stuff just doesn't look 100%. It looks like a little odd. Like the lighting is weird. Like you can definitely tell when like things are merged and they completely harmonize. And there's other times where it's like, no, this is literally just like cut out abs from a magazine, pasted into this magazine, and now it's the same, right? And you're like, no, it's the lighting's off and all that stuff. And once again, all of these things look fantastic, especially the low angle dramatic shot. Awesome. So cool. But after all of this, you're like, wow, that looks really good if you're into like a Japanese realistic aesthetic, right? No, it was just the control. So it's just the control that we used. So when we scroll down, you guys will see with how this thing functions. Oh, one more thing. I just wanted to let you guys know that this model, in my experience, did not break under the pressure of prompt weight. So sometimes when you give a lot of weight to a specific sentence or a prompt or something like that, it will cause the distortions to happen. So if you say like looking at camera, so like the person switched and looked at you, if you increase the prompt weight to that with that label or keyword or sentence, up to like 2.6, which is really high. Sometimes it will like overbake because the AI is basically like rendering something that's already done. Like the AI is already made the character look at the camera. It can't do that more, you know? So it ends up creating this weird distortion effect and like overbaked kind of thing. I didn't have it happen with this. This is also my attempt at trying to get the goddamn tomboy thing to happen. Did not happen. Kind of happened maybe. Anyways, but yeah, I didn't really find it made a big difference. Anyways, this is the thing I think you guys want to see, which is pretty impressive, I think. This model is not just good for photorealistic. When you really stack the deck in an art style and you do all of the things, it really can come together as an artistic model as well. That's one of the things that I think is a lie out there, is that like this model is only good for photorealism. No, it's just the best at photorealism. Doesn't mean that it's bad in all these other ways either. Especially if you actually like stack things on top of each other. Like when you see the styles by themselves, they have some weaknesses, but if you stack styles on top of like culling words that make everything like much nicer, like lighting and all of these things that stack on top of each other to make a really strong image, then you can get a lot out of it. But anyways, this is the corresponding images and the corresponding words. Try back up a little bit just so you guys can see the text as well. There we go. So yeah, now you guys can see our segmentation, so you can see what we did in each category. But yes, this one turned out great. I don't know why, but this one seems like it nailed that just the right amount of like, I would never have thought this was AI, ever. Yeah, this one is a little bit not great. This is the hitching style, which it tries to do. Is it hatching? Anyways, this one, dude. This one's great. I think you could still tell in some ways this one's like generated, but it still looks so good. It's so good. Like oh my god, I think that one's metal as hell. Anyways, I love that one. This one doesn't do great. This one not the best. It kind of looks super soft. It looks like it's I probably should anchor down. Again, we're trying to use the same things I've used on every one of them. So I made these like this template a while ago, and we're kind of just using it to show how it plays with our same prompts, so we can see the differential between all these. And I might change out one or two on occasion, but I kind of want to keep some of them similar so that you guys can see a one-to-one reference for how this model handles it and how that model handles it, right? But anyways, the mech one, also pretty okay. I wouldn't have thought that's AI. Again, I think a lot of these, what impresses me the most is that they've gotten to the point where this model is so good at imitating that I don't think I could tell it's AI generated. Especially if you're using things like water painting and all these things that naturally have so much flaws built into them, that I think it's just great, you know, because I think it emulates flaws beautifully. It emulates perfection too beautifully, if that makes any sense. I think the pastel colors, it does okay. This one was kind of a little bit, maybe if I did it a couple more attempts, I would see eventually a better version. And then we have down here, it's funny, this one I felt like it was not the best with the realistic thing. AK photorealistic textures, hyper-realistic style. It didn't do great, I feel like. I probably should have, I'm not sure because it feels like it kind of has a 3D filter through it, and I wonder what's causing it. Portrait, military, so yeah, there's nothing in there that I think would detonate 3D anything. But yes, same thing. We're using a watercolor, pretty fantastic. This one looks a little bit not great. This one I feel like is just some hallucinations happening here. This one, which is usually like the kingpin for anime one, and I still think a lot of the anime ones beat this model in terms of the anime aesthetic, but it's not bad. That's entirely passable, man. I feel like the lips got a little bit of distortion going on, but that's just because I'm a freak, and I kind of half of the game about like doing AI anything is realizing the magnum opus is creating something that doesn't look like AI. So you half the time you're fixing the anomalies, anyways. So you have to find the anomalies, but this one did the best. The whole the thing nails beautifully the overall composition, which I think is because you actually get to say it. So you can say moody, dark, academy lighting, candlelight, delicate watercolor textures, things like that. Give it all that information in a sentence. The only thing that we're kind of missing is those like trope words, I think, that like tomboy or like book nerd or something like, or jock or something like that, that like you can just say and it's like, got it. I know what you're trying to reference. And all the other details after that will just give me more context of what kind of version of that you want. Instead, you have to describe all of the variables that make up a jock of like, okay, I guess wearing a fucking football uniform, jacked, giant shoulder pads, dumb looking. I don't know, I don't know what you want to call it. Maybe I'm being rude with that one, but this was the new addition that I wanted to try, which was basically a spin kick, which is just super difficult to like pull off, and it does a pretty good job. Her arm is severely dislocated, her face not the most detailed, but you know, it's a good one. It's a good attempt. And then this one I feel like was a pretty big miss. I feel like this one, just for reference point, if you guys are curious, for any of the other things, we go all the way down here. Gotta scroll up here, go this one, all the way down. See, that's what that's supposed to look like for the anime kind of filter. Same thing with this. We go all the way down. And then this, again, still looks nice. And then we have the image, which... But again, it's because I think it's based on realistic stuff. So it's trying to go off of like a realistic older woman, not like a stylized artistic version of what that person is supposed to look like, the ideal dumb dreamlike thing you have in your head. It's trying to ground it in as much reality as possible. So yeah, also it is also tagged as a professional concept art. So it's kind of meant to have some rough around the edges, so I kind of set it up to fail in some capacities. And in a lot of ways, maybe this model did better than those other models, because the other models filled in the blank and made it pretty without having context to do that, whereas this one adhered to the prompt. So take it with what you got. But ladies and gentlemen, this one took a long time to make, boyo. This one, I do not have a Giga PC, so this was good, but man, I would highly advise the turbo equivalent. It's much faster. And yes, and I don't know, I want to kind of get back into helping doing some like other videos. This takes up so much time that I only have like enough to like, you know, cover a couple things, but I do think this is one of the more valuable things I could offer you guys. It's just something that infinitely gets more valuable the more we add to it. And just lets you immediately understand the worth of a model, I think. So I always like to do this, but alas. But now, every single one of you can create remarkably realistic images for whatever you want, as far as like, you know, website design, or like characters holding products that you possibly want, and all of those variables, or even making a thumbnail that looks kind of cool, because this thing does really well with compositional stuff, which I know is a bottleneck for a lot of people who try to mess around with AI stuff. You want to create like a cool image, and you're trying to find out whatever keyword would maybe detonate it, whereas this one you could just speak, you can just say a sentence. Low profile shot, warrior wielding about to bust out a sword, things like that, which is a lot easier for people to say rather than samurai, low shot, pulling katana out, angry expression, like all these weird blockade things. But now, hopefully, you can do. Again, heavy model, bit big, take a long time to run, all that stuff. But use the turbo equivalent, and it softens a lot at the edge. So yes, and I do believe this is one of those things that you can actually install right from Krita. Yeah. You can do that. Yeah, whatever method you want. I don't want to go into it. Some videos are already quite long. As always, please, 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 please go support the people who actually make the model and make all these things possible for us. It's always linked at the very top of the label library. In the mod description, it'll take you to the actual place where I download it, which is Civitai. And if you're wanting more fun content, we have a bunch of stuff over at school. It's entirely free to sign up, and there is a install guide. There is a bunch of free content, and of course, there's one thing I made called the Artist Arsenal at this point, which is probably a lot of the stuff that I made for the Artist Arsenal is actually, I just gave to you guys for free with a lot of this, at least an aspect of it. There are some cool aspects in there that I haven't really shown off yet, but alas. Thank you so much for your time. I hope you have a fantastic day, and I hope I was useful. Bye.